Hi everyone, let's talk quickly about proportion. As you saw in the lecture, proportion is a relationship of parts to the whole when we're talking about size. So if we have something like the scissors, for example, right? I know you can't probably see the markings on the ruler, but if we measure that, it's about 8 inches long, right? So we know our length is 8 inches. And if I measure the widest point, it's about 3 inches tall. So if I was to go and recreate that at a different scale, like let's say we make it at a racer scale, I could create a rectangle 5, 6, 7, 8. That is 3 units by 8 units. These units could be the width of the paperclip, the length of your finger, something you make up out of your head, inches, centimeters, it doesn't matter because again, proportions are ratios. They are not set to any particular unit. So right now we're essentially moving between inches and the width of that ruler, which is pretty close to an inch, or width of the eraser, sorry. But like I said, we could do it with paper clips if we wanted. So, right, so here the handle is about 3 inches long. Well, that's great. So I know that if I go out 3 inches, then I have these handles. Yeah. The width of that orange handle is about 1 eraser, 1 inch, so 1 eraser width, right? And it's going to fit in here. Yeah. See how that works? I can start to plan my object. Yeah. And I know that the scissors will exist on some plane like that. Okay? So I can start to plan my object, and even if I start to draw freely, right, from observation, I can still have a pretty good sense of where I am going as I do that because I've planned things out in proportion. And I'm going to get something that, in the end, will look a lot more like my scissors than if I didn't take any sight measurements at all when we started. All right, so more on sight measuring in just a second. Okay, today we're going to talk about sighting and finding proportion and using angle finding to construct your drawing. So the first thing we want to think about is how we're going to measure, right? I am using a magazine picture here to kind of simulate me being backed up and further away from an object that I'm viewing in real space. And what we want to do is hold our pencil either upright like this or horizontal like this to take measurements. You use the end of the pencil to mark one edge of the object, and you use your thumb to mark the other edge. And therefore we have 1 unit. And from what you know about proportion, it's a ratio, right? So if we know that that is the width of the lampshade, then we can measure 1, 2, 3, and note that that lamp is about 3 times as tall as it is wide as its widest point. Now, when you're sight measuring in real life, it's really important to keep your elbow straight because if you go closer or further away from the object, you can see that that measurement changes and I'm no longer using the same thing, right? So if I measure from here and then I bend my elbow, all of a sudden that lamp is, about twice as tall as it is wide, which is not in proportion. Okay, right? So we could take that measurement a different way. We could say that the height of the base to the height of the whole lamp is about 2 1/3, right? So then I can go to my drawing, and let's say I want to draw it smaller. We said it was about 1/3 as wide as it is tall. So in my drawing now I've kind of captured the space where that entire lamp is going to live, right? Now if I go back, 1, there's the height of the shade. The height of the shade, is about 1/4, right? So I know that that shade fits here. The length of the stem is what? Let's see if we can take a measurement from the base of the lamp. It's roughly half of this distance, right? So now we know the stem exists here, which gives us the base at the bottom. So we know its height just by knowing the height of these two using our proportional measurements. So what about the width of the base? The width of the base is what? 1, 2. You can see how I'm putting my thumb where the tip of the pencil used to be. It's a little less than 1/3. I don't know. Let's see how it relates to the height of the lampshade. See if we can get a good proportion. 1, 2. Well, it's closest to about 1/3 of the width. And again, I don't have my elbow locked doing it this small, so we'll just pretend at the moment. So if I take this distance, then I can transfer that down, and I know that the base of my lamp is about that wide. So just in a few simple steps, I have the primary contours of my lamp, right? Those outside edges. I can continue on and find secondary contours like the height of this cone, right? That cone is a little over 1/3 the height of the base. So let's say it's about like this, or sorry, a little less than 1/3. Right, so I can keep breaking up my object by taking proportional measurements from different places, like we can measure from here to here, right? Height of this, width of that. Everything relates. Remember, proportion is the relationship of sizes inside of a whole. And in this case, that's inside of an object. In the next demo, I'll show you how to think of that proportional relationship inside the whole of a drawing. But that's for next time. Right, we're going to talk a little bit about proportion inside of a whole drawing and some angle finding to wrap up this particular demo. So imagine that we're sitting here with our drawing easel ready to go, and we're looking at our beautiful kind of collection of modernist chairs all arranged in ways that are really difficult to sit on. But that's the room that we have at our house to look at. So over here I've recreated a 3x4 rectangle. Remember, this is the same proportion as your 18x24 drawing paper. So this is the room. This is my, big drawing paper or proportional drawing paper. And luckily enough, it's proportional to the viewfinder that I've made, right? So the first thing I can do is start to look around the room with what I might be interested in drawing. And I think, for me, I want to concentrate on those two chairs. So what's the first thing I notice? I notice that that table is halfway up, right? The tabletop is halfway up my piece of paper, and that the table leg where it comes down is almost 3/4 of the way across my paper. So I can come right to my halfway point, and remember, this is me like gesturing big on my big piece of paper and just knock that tabletop right into place, right? So I'll try to get this back in a similar spot. And what do I notice now? Well, I notice that that corner of the chair is about halfway, right, up and down. And it is right between 1/4 and 1/2 of the way up from the bottom of the page. So I can come over here and then say there's my 1/2, and there's my 1/4, and the top of the chair is about here, and it's halfway over. So there's the corner of my chair, right? Now what I can do angle finding wise is I can come in, and you can do this, with your full arm and a big stroke on a piece of paper, and I can find that angle. and bring it directly across to my piece of paper, right? Without moving my hand, okay? And I can do that for all my angles. I can bring that directly across, right? I can use a level line to look at the corner here of the chair across to the height of the other corner and see, okay, so that corner is about halfway up, right? So I want this corner to end about halfway up. Oh, and that's actually on an angle. So let's measure that. All right. So we can start to construct the drawing. Now, I don't want to get too tedious about this one object without first planning the relationships between things, right? We always want to work general to specific, where we have a lot of our objects put into the space so that we know that when our drawing is done, they're going to have, now look at that right there, that leg is going right down through the corner of that chair. So see, right there, I had my chair moved too far over already, right? So in here, we can use our plumb lines and our level lines to look for relationships between the things we're drawing, okay? And that's how we can get the space generally planned out before we spend a lot of time working on the details and such, right? Because we don't want to spend all this time drawing in like every little slat of the chair and, you know, every little shadow, and then have it in completely the wrong place relative to the rest of the drawing. So plumb lines will show you relationships between things horizontally, and level lines will show you relationships between things vertically. Okay? Angle finding will help you establish the shape, the primary contours of things. And those proportional measurements you can use to find sizes and relationships inside of an object, like in the last video, or between objects and the relationship to each other, or their relationship to the page as a whole. All right, good luck.